welcome to Chris Recommends. In this video, I'm going to be talking about a 1 to 4 player worker placement and deck building game designed by Paul Denin and published by Dire Wolf. This game is called Dune Imperium. In Dune Imperium, players take on the roles of heads of households in what's called the Landsrat. It's basically an imperial senate or something like that in the future, the far, far future. And this takes place during the setting, the time frame of the book Dune, written by Frank Herbert in the 60s, 65. It is putting you into the shoes of someone who's in control of one of those houses. Now, this game doesn't exactly tell the story of the book. It's more of a reimagining of the intergalactic intrigue that could have been going on between the houses of the Landsrat. Largely, this is a worker placement Euro game, that is where you're trying to turn in resources to make other resources and trying to get ahead in various ways, moving up on tracks, things like that. And you're going to be doing this in order to get to 10 points. At the end of a round, if any of the players in the game have reached 10 points, then the game end is triggered. Then the person who is furthest ahead on the track wins. So everyone is going to start with a deck of 10 cards. You'll have a bunch of cards, and I'll explain those just in a second. Everyone will be given a leader, which is here is Glossu Beastraban, Helena Riches, someone who doesn't really occur in the first book. One of the main characters, Duke Leto Atreides, Paul Atreides, the main character of Dune. And they give you specific abilities to start the game. During the game, you're going to be taking your workers, in this case they're called agents, and you're going to be taking your agents, you're going to be placing them on the board, but you're not just going to be placing them anywhere. You're actually going to be playing cards from your hand, and these cards are going to give you access to different locations on the board. So these symbols over on this side of the card indicate which spaces your worker can go to. So you're going to take on your turn, you're going to play a card, and you're going to send your agent to the space that's available to you from that card. If your card has an effect after you play it, such as this signet ring card in this gray box, then you'll do that effect at the same time you resolve the space's action. You're only going to have 2 agents to start the game, and they can get another one throughout the game called a Swordmaster, by going to specific locations on the board. But because you have so few actual agents to go and take actions on the board, you're going to have to take what's called a reveal turn. When you take a reveal turn, players are going to reveal the remaining cards in their hand, and then they're going to be using anything in this bottom area on the card and doing its effect. So in this case, this just gives you 1 persuasion, which is the game's currency for purchasing cards. There will be a central market next to the board, and that market is available to all players to purchase cards from. And after you take, or when you take a reveal turn, you can, add up your persuasion and then take cards equal to their persuasion. So for instance, if I wanted to buy this card here, this is Firm Grip. It is a pretty powerful card in the game. I would have to pay 4 persuasion. And it's just sort of like a virtual currency. If you have 4 persuasion, you can just take the card. The cards you purchase go into your discard pile, and then when you're out of your draw pile, you shuffle your discard pile together, make a new draw pile, and then continue drawing from it. So the discard pile will cycle back into your draw pile, then your draw pile will cycle to your hand, and the cards in your hand will go to your discard pile, and it kind of cycles around like that. But you could also purchase specialty cards that are always available in every game. Some of them give you points, like the Spice Must Flow. So there's a little symbol here indicating that when you purchase this card, you get a point. Additionally, some other cards that you'll buy will also let you purchase points. Right, so this one, Opulence, lets you turn Solari is the coinage in this game. Solari into, get that to focus, into a point. In addition to that, you're also going to be conducting a sort of battle. There's skirmishes that happen every round. And this is really interesting and one of the more tense and cutthroat parts of this game, you will be competing with everybody by throwing cubes, which are your soldiers, your troops, into a centralized battle. And every round, at the end of the round, once everyone has taken a reveal turn, you're going to resolve that battle. And the person with the most strength in that battle is going to win a bonus, and then the second most will win a bonus, and third most will win a bonus. And so you're kind of getting a sense for how that goes. You're going to be throwing them into this kind of centralized area. The trick is that if you send guys into the conflict, no matter how many you send in, those guys are gone. They will not come back to you. So you have to decide how many guys to push into the conflict in order to get the resources or the bonuses you wanted. So it's pretty competitive. And so that's part of the thrill of this game, is trying to figure out how many guys to push into the conflict and how many to keep in reserve for next round or a really important round. There's an additional deck of cards. This is called the Intrigue deck. The Intrigue deck has sort of random effects, bonuses that you can acquire, some having to do with conflict, and some having to just do with overall just agent turns when you're sending out agents. Some let you acquire cards. Some let you look at top cards of your deck and draw cards. Others just give you resources. Some let you recall agents, things like that. And a couple of them, there's 2 of them in here, are called end game effects, and those give you points at the end of the game, sort of like hidden points. There are 3 main types of resources in this game. The first is Solari. There's water, which is the resource that's very scarce on Arrakis. Players are going to have to really scrape to get a lot of water. That's hard to find. And then there's spice. And spice melange is a resource in the lore of the books. Spice only occurs on Arrakis, only on Dune. And what it is a kind of life lengthening mineral. It allows intergalactic space travel. It gives the Bene Gesserit their foresight. It does all sorts of things. And this is one of the other resources you can collect. But spice is valuable and you can trade it in for Solari. I'm going to start out by saying this is the most fun I have had in a board game in years. I like to compare this game to Settlers of Catan, Dominion, these classic Euro games that really brought me into the hobby. Dune Imperium, regardless of whether you think that the theme matters to you or not, has a lot of those core aspects that makes it both accessible, deep, and it feels tight in its resource management and its action economy so that everything seems to matter. There is some randomness in this game. The Intrigue deck that I mentioned earlier, you're going to be drawing off the top of that deck. And so you could get a good card, you could get something that helps with combat, or maybe you'll get something that does absolutely nothing for you and you're like, how do I use this card? So you're kind of working with that deck as opposed to fighting with it. You kind of want to roll with the punches when it comes up. And so for players who don't like any randomness at all, they might be turned off by that. There's a lot of cards in the Imperium deck. The cards that this game comes with offer some really difficult choices. Which ones do you buy? How do you value them? And which worker placement space do you use on that card? Or do you hold on to that card for a reveal turn? Because sometimes these reveal turns will have really nuts effects. Like for instance, here's Gurney Halleck, and if you play him, you get this effect here. You could get 2 troops, that's what those cubes are called, they're troops, and draw a card. That's what the green card means. Or you can wait and get this effect. You can get 2 more persuasion, and you can pay 3 Solari to get 2 more troops directly into the conflict. So there's a lot of interesting choices in this game. Another thing that makes this game really fun is the player interaction. I mentioned that this is a tight, tense game, especially when it comes to the conflict, but the worker placement spaces are as contested as the conflict itself. What I mean by that is most of the time you can only send 1 worker to a space, and if someone sends a worker there, that space is blocked for that round. So you have to think about your turn, and you're only going to be playing 1 card and sending 1 agent. So maybe I send an agent to the Great Flat and get some spice, but then the location I wanted to go to turn that spice into something else was taken by someone else. So you're kind of like doing this double think a little bit and trying to guess where people are going to go. There's all sorts of interesting strategy when it comes to the worker placement aspect of this game. It is the thing that makes it worth playing and buying for me. This game is mean, and that is a good thing and a bad thing. I like heavy interaction games. I love games where I get to do things that will affect you and then you have to pivot. I like tactical games like that. This is very much like that. This is very much a high interaction Euro game. But if you're not a fan of having things go real south, like you can play this game and score 5 points over the course of the entire game. You do a lot of things and not get any points. Or you could be really churning through some points if you get your engine going, if you start to get the right cards, if you start to get the right location, cards to go locations. And so it can be a little polarizing. I've seen games where players have run the gamut and gone all the way up to 10 points by round 6, which is quite remarkable. And I've also seen games be so tight where like 3 out of the 4 players were within a point of each other for 3 rounds, and nobody knew what was going to happen. And that is the most exciting stuff that can happen in Dune, is when you really don't know where it's going to go. I love it. I love the interaction. I love the art. I love this source material. It's more window dressing as a theme. It still kind of evokes the feeling of Dune. It evokes that feeling of intrigue, the feeling of kind of betraying other people, because you don't really work together in this game. There's no like, oh, I'll do this if you do this sort of moments like in Big Dune. That doesn't happen in this game. What happens in this game is you'll kind of be doing a thing, and then suddenly you'll play a couple of cards, or you'll play an intrigue card, or you go to a space that launches you past somebody to overtake them on one of the tracks and lets you steal their allegiance with that faction. Those moments feel like you're backstabbing your opponents, even though you're actually not. You're just kind of playing the game. If you're not into highly interactive games, then I wouldn't want to play Dune at all. I would feel attacked all the time. But if you're interested in being able to affect other people and have that kind of sense of agency, quite literally you're playing agents in this game, then I highly recommend it. As far as player count goes, this game does not play great at 2 players. It's okay at 2, but I wouldn't buy it if your primary goal is to play this with your significant other. This is a 3 or 4 player game. I also want to say that the solo is quite good. The solo mode in this game is very good. It's tense and interesting. You play against a bot that kind of does random things off of the top of the deck. It's called the House Hug All deck. You also can automate these things with the Direwolf digital app for this game. But if you were asking me whether you should buy this game for 2 players, I would say no. I would primarily buy this game if you had 3 or 4 players. And I think the game plays best at 4. It's phenomenal at 4. It plays very good at 3. I think that the 3-player game, there's a little bit more wiggle room in terms of where you're going. Some of the faction leader cards are better in 3-player. Some of them are better in 4-player. So if you are going to think about this game as a 3 and 4-player game only, kind of like how Catan, you can only play 3-player minimum with Catan. If you have that kind of a household, this will definitely be for you. It's going to appeal to those who know what Dune is. And it's got that tie-in with the movie, the upcoming movie. This might be my favorite game I've played in the last 5 years. It's so engaging, so different each time, and it offers some phenomenal replayability. You might buy one card that you've never tried, and suddenly you've got a new engine going. There are very few games I've played in the last 5 years that have given me that sense of, oh, like that kind of moment where you're kind of leaning over the table and have been just like, oh my God. So it really does that for me. The game is rated for 14 plus. As far as age, I think that this game, there's no violence really in this game. It's sort of implied in the conflict and things like that. And I'd say that at the earliest, I think you'd want a 10-year-old maybe who's well into games, who has been playing things like Catan and Ticket to Ride and those sorts of games and likes highly interactive games. That's the kind of the floor, I'd say, for ages. However, for adults, this is such a highly enjoyable game as well. I think if you can get your kids to play this game and have a great time, it will be immensely rewarding. You just have to get past the fact that they're probably not going to have read the source material. It doesn't have that kind of universal theme that kids might be able to get into. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe below so you can get notifications of future videos. And let us know how we're doing in the comments. And I will see you on the next one. Take care.